welcome to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. I'm your host, Louis Padian. I hope that you're doing well and are enjoying the podcast and the topics we've covered so far. These podcasts are released every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so be sure to subscribe wherever you are listening to be kept up to date. So today we are covering a common myth that I often hear when I'm helping people get a bit healthier. One of the things that people are often worried about, which they don't need to be worried about, is fruit. And what I mean by that is that fruit is bad for us. They've heard all these things. They've heard people speaking on podcasts. They've seen YouTube videos where people are saying fruit is bad for you. And there's a few reasons why that people believe this or people try to convince you. And we're going to dig into those today. And hopefully by the end of this, that you won't fear fruit and actually see that fruit is a wonderful thing that we can include. But we'll jump straight in. So the biggest one, the most common one that I hear is that fruit is full of sugar. And they feel that it should be avoided because of the sugar content alone. And the truth is that fruits do contain sugar, what we'd call intrinsic sugars, which means other people might call natural sugars, ones that exist within the product already. But they also contain lots of other things. Fruit isn't just a ball of table sugar. It's mainly water, fiber, sugar, vitamins, minerals. It's a combination of lots of different things. And actually, the fiber especially helps slow down that absorption of, or that release of sugar into the bloodstream. So actually isn't a huge issue if we're looking at blood sugars. And fruit has so many more benefits than it has drawbacks in that sense, especially when we're looking at whole fruit. And the research supports this as well. So a 2013 review found that there was no significant association between fruit consumption and increased risk of type 2 diabetes, which is often one of the big worries around having sugar. People worry that they're going to have really high blood glucose levels and they're going to develop type 2 diabetes, when actually that isn't the case. And actually that was shown in people who had really high fruit intakes of up to 8 servings per day, which is a huge amount of fruit to have. And like I've said in the past on previous episodes, fruit is wonderful because it's actually quite a big amount of food for a low amount of calories, got a good amount of fiber, it's got lots of vitamins and minerals, got loads of water in it, and is a really nice packaged thing and can be really easy and handy to have on the go. Other research as well has found no association between increased fruit intake and gaining weight or diabetes risk, and actually found that it's associated with a reduction of heart disease by up to 8%. And heart disease is one of the biggest killers worldwide. So we know that reducing that can be a huge benefit, and just a part of that approach could be increasing your fruit intake. Another thing is, one of the ways that we often try and get our fruit in, yes, we might have it handy just as it is on the go, but another one is smoothies. And people, when I've suggested that if they don't like certain fruits, or they might think, well, I like smoothies, but no, they're bad for you. And actually, smoothies aren't bad for you at all, but smoothies exist on a continuum. And there are ones that are probably a bit better for you, that are more nutritious, and ones that are probably not really as nutritious as they like you to believe. So when we have a look at homemade smoothies, so if you've just got a blender and you're chucking lots of fruits and vegetables into there, and chucking the whole fruit especially, that you're not peeling it, for example, and making sure you put the whole in there, they great at adding lots of nutrients in there because we're keeping the fiber, we're keeping the vitamins and minerals, keeping the water content. And yes, it's probably not as good as having the whole fruit by itself, but actually it's still a really nutritious meal and can be really filling for a lot of people. So yes, whilst we might not say that it's a perfect example, it's a really, really good step in the right direction for a lot of people. Like I said, providing lots of essential vitamins and minerals, and the best ones probably are the ones that are homemade. Ones that we might buy off the shelf might have more added ingredients, such as more added sugar added, and taking stuff like fiber out, more preservatives and things like that, which are probably going to make them less satisfying and satiating, less filling, and more likely to overeat on, drink more of, and offer less nutritional benefits. So when I was looking at this, there was two really interesting things that came out of this that I've seen in practice as well. So a 2020 study found that replacing sugary beverages with fruit smoothies led to improved dietary intake and better weight management in overweight adults. So if you're wanting to lose weight and you feel that actually smoothies are just full of sugar, research supports that actually replacing sugary drinks with smoothie will improve your overall dietary intake with vitamins and minerals, but may help with managing your weight a little bit better as well. Another study from 2022 found that smoothies were helpful in increasing fruit and veg intake in picky eaters, especially in children and adolescents. And this is one of the biggest things as well. When I work with people, I often work with parents or people who have adolescents in the house, and they tend to find that their habits and behaviors, or one of the things that we tend to find is their habits and behaviors are often mimicked or picked up by their kids or adolescents within the house. So we want to set a better example. We want to show that having a nutritious diet, it can be really enjoyable, but it can make it more accessible. And people that I work with are often people in control of what's in the kitchen, what's in the fridge. So if we can improve people's health and well-being by having more fruits and vegetables in the house and showing them that smoothie is a great way to increase your fruit and veg and be more nutritious, especially if you feel that you've got fussy or picky eaters in the house, then that is a huge step forward. And often when I work with people in the NHS and work with my clients, we see health benefits across the family just by working with one individual, because often people copy, they mimic, they may question, they may observe what people are doing and what people are changing and the benefits they're getting from them as well. So if people are noticing that other people have more energy, they're feeling better day to day, they are enjoying their food a bit more, and they are having a bit more flexibility, and their meals are really nutritious, that actually they might start copying that, or they might start trying those fruits and vegetables that are available in the house as well. So smoothies are a fantastic way to do that. Next on the list is fruit spikes your insulin. And this is very similar to the first one, and this is one of the things that people often are scared around. But in my opinion, and from the research I've read and listened to experts in the field, unless you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, I wouldn't worry too much around your blood sugars. If you need to moderate them, then yes, being aware of how your insulin is behaving is really important. But if you're a healthy individual and you're not worried about diabetes, or you don't have any symptoms of diabetes or pre-diabetes, then I wouldn't get too caught up in your blood sugars, especially ones when you've got a continuous blood glucose monitor attached to your arm when you don't need it. That's completely not necessary, and they become a really, really popular thing. And there's probably a whole different episode I could do on that, because it's real fad that's really, really not important. It's getting people to focus on things that aren't important when actually they can make huge benefits elsewhere. But as we've said, fruits contain sugar, yet they contain lots of other things, and they may have a higher glycemic index they might have a high GI, what you might have heard in the past, but actually a lot of them have a low glycemic load. And what we mean by this is glycemic index is just to do with the amount of sugar within a certain portion of that food. So that could be 50, 100 grams, whatever, and each food will get a score on that. Glycemic load actually takes into account the amount of you'd have per serving. So an example that I've read about is watermelon scores really high on the GI scale, but actually really, really low on the glycemic load. And we need to take that into consideration, because people aren't going around having massive servings of these fruits that are really, really high in carbohydrates. Actually, they're having quite small amounts if we're talking about per serving. So not worrying too much about glycemic index and not worrying about sort of insulin or the amount of sugar within fruit in general is a really, really good way to go with this. And also, if you are considered about that and you feel that that is something to focus on, fruit will actually have a pretty low or unlikely to cause significant insulin spikes in general. So I found some research that are around this area that could be really useful, and hopefully getting people not to focus on this, because I don't feel it's like a really, really big thing to focus on, especially if you don't have pre-diabetes or diabetes. So a 2017 study found that actually the rise in blood sugar was triggered by fruit, reduced cravings, promotes satiety, that fullness or that satisfaction from that meal, and helps people feel fuller for longer and manage their weight more effectively. So actually, it can have a benefit by increasing the amount of fruit in your diet, can have a huge benefit into your overall health and well-being long term for looking at weight and how people feel after their meals. Improved insulin sensitivity as well. So a 2022 review found that fruit had a beneficial impact on insulin sensitivity, particularly in those with type 2 diabetes. So if you're in that category and you're wanting to improve your health, and often one of the things that when I speak to patients who are pre-diabetic or diabetic, they've been told, or they're fearing fruit because it's high in sugar, and actually, as I've said, the high fiber content, that vitamin and mineral content, and actually
the reduction of the amount of food that we're getting for the amount of calories is a huge benefit. What we don't want to be doing is juicing it all and just getting the water and sugar and flavors from it. We want the fiber content, we want vitamins and minerals. We want it to actually chew it and enjoy that fruit as a whole fruit. And that actually will have positive benefits, especially on those who are wanting to manage their blood sugars long term. And on that note, a 2020 study compared whole fruits versus just their juices on blood sugar response. And they found that whole fruits led to a significantly lower and more sustained blood sugar levels compared to just the juice. So again, highlighting the importance of having the whole fruit with the fiber, with the vitamins and minerals versus just juicing it in general. And finally, a 2017 study observed the relationship between fruit intake and diabetes risk. The findings concluded that the moderate fruit intake consumption is not associated with increased risk of diabetes, again showing that increased fruit intake does not have any risk around your insulin levels, your diabetes, pre-diabetes. It isn't the cause of it or isn't going to lead to being diabetic. So hopefully that has underlined the point that you don't have to worry about your insulin or blood sugars when it comes to fruit. Last but not least is a common myth around where we get our fruit from, or how we get our fruit, and people often believe that fresh is better than frozen. And this is mainly down to preference or what's available, but actually frozen is a huge win when I speak to patients, that if we can get people buying frozen fruit and vegetables in general, it's usually more cost effective, it's usually easier to store, it has a longer sort of storage length and doesn't go off as easy, and it's just as nutritious. And when we've had a look at the research, 2018 study found that when they looked at strawberries, for example, found comparable levels of vitamin C, fiber and antioxidants in frozen strawberries when compared to fresh. And people often fear that it's going to be a lesser product. Actually, it's a really, really accessible way. It's usually ready packed. You can even get them even in serving packs as well. And I've done that in the past, where you get the ones that you just stick in the microwave and defrost. And they're easy to chuck into meals to bulk them out, add a bit more nutrition and fiber in there as well. So don't fear frozen fruits or vegetables. Again, if we're looking at the smoothie example, you can get the smoothie packs from the freezers as well, and it just makes things easier. And my job as a coach often is just to make these habits and behaviors as easier and as possible, because then they're going to be more consistent and then they're going to become more habitual long term. So you don't have to worry about buying fresh all the time, going off within a few days. Frozen is perfectly good, a good way to get your fruits and vegetables in. So there are the 4 myths, and hopefully we have busted them. So first one was fruit is full of sugar, and again, that's nothing to worry about. Second of all, smoothies are bad for you, and hopefully I've shown you that actually they're a really, really good option to improve your diet quality, especially if you yourself are a picky eater or have children or teenagers in the house who are picky eaters as well. Fruit spikes your insulin, and again, I wouldn't worry about your insulin levels unless you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, but again, there's lots of positive things associated with fruit in general with regards to cardiovascular disease. Doesn't impact your risk of diabetes, or isn't the influential factor in developing pre-diabetes or diabetes. And last but not least, that believing that fresh is better than frozen. Actually, frozen is often a better choice for people. It's more affordable, it's more accessible, it's easier to have in the house, and you can, especially with smoothie and things like that, get ready-made packs that reduce the amount of admin. And like I said, we're trying to make these healthier habits more accessible and easier for people to do more regularly.
So there you have it. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. If you have any questions, queries, or would like to reach out to me, please do. I am at Louis Padian Nutrition, which is at LOUISPADIAN Nutrition on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all other social media platforms. If you're looking for support in achieving your goals and living a healthier, happier, and more balanced life in the process, click the link below and inquire about working with me. Remember to subscribe to the Balanced Approach podcast wherever you're listening for more insightful episodes, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.